All right, hey you guys, I want to talk you through the determinants and solution aspect. This is the major part of your project. This is really where groups set themselves apart as far as understanding how to come up with a solid solution idea or not. Really, it kind of comes down to that. All right, so I'm looking at and using the example tobacco slideshow, tobacco prevention slideshow that is posted on the tutorials document. And so please, you should be looking at that as far as an example and stuff. And so let's go to slide number 37. So your first task is to pick determinants, all right? And I have linked a document in your directions where I have found all the determinants for you, all right? They're all posted in that document. These determinants are things that have been proven in science to be true. All right, determinants are things that exist around you, subtle or not subtle, that actually push you towards making certain decisions. Okay, so they exist. They can be individual characteristics. They can be social and societal and community type characteristics. They can be physical. They can be mental and personality characteristics. But you can't make them up on your own. You can't think like just decide a determinant for teen alcohol use is like, oh, because they're bored. No, it has to be proven, and you have to take them off of that list, all right, that I've provided. All right, so you're going to come up with four. You're going to pick four, I should say, not come up with, but you're going to pick four that you feel like you could have a impact on. And I talked about that in the determinants video. If you haven't watched that, you need to go back and watch it. All right, I cannot stress that enough. So you will pick four that you feel like you can come up with ideas that will impact them, and then four that you feel like are interesting to know, but that you think would be pretty difficult to have an impact on. All right. So for this example, on this slide, determinants: self-esteem, friend group, if you're involved in religious activities, and what your family relationships are like. All right. The yellow ones are protective factors, and the white ones are risk factors. So low self-esteem would make someone more likely, it's not a guarantee, but it makes them more likely to use tobacco. Friends who use tobacco or accept tobacco use make it more likely that you would then use tobacco at some point eventually. If you are involved in religious activities, it actually makes you less likely. And if you have positive family relationships and healthy family relationships, that also makes you less likely to use tobacco. All right. Now, these are four determinants that would be pretty difficult to impact. All right. You can't make somebody choose a new friend group. You can't make somebody participate in religious activities. You can't force somebody's family to be healthy, okay? And self-esteem, there are things you can do to help it, but it's pretty hard to make somebody get higher self-esteem. All right, so while it's possible to impact it and provide some opportunities to increase it, there are better determinants that we can impact easier than that one. All right, and that's what I'm going to show you now. And I think it'll become pretty obvious. Peer refusal skills. All right, lack of peer refusal skills, how to say no to your friends, regardless of what the topic is, makes it more likely that you will do that thing. In this case, use tobacco. If you are experiencing academic failure, it doesn't mean that you will use tobacco, but it makes it more likely. If you are involved in school activities, it makes it less likely. It's a protective factor. It makes it less likely that you will use tobacco. And if you have future plans, like in 3 years, I want to be at the U of M, or I want to be starting my own business, or I want to be in coding school, right? If you can see a future for yourself, it actually makes it less likely you'll use tobacco, because you don't want anything to get in your way of achieving those goals, all right? Even if you don't think of them as goals, if you have things that you want to achieve in life, you are less likely to do risky behaviors, because you don't want things because you know on some level that it could sort of derail you from those plans, and you don't want to let anything get in your way of achieving sort of your dreams. All right. So in this case, we've got 2 risk factors and 2 protective factors. And there are 4 determinants that I feel like I can come up with ideas on how to impact. All right, so those first two that are risk factors, we want to decrease the amount of people experiencing them. We want less people to not have good refusal skills. All right, we want less people to experience academic failure. We want more people involved in school activities and more people having future plans and being able to see a future for themselves. All right, now those are the 4 determinants that we're going to use to do the brainstorming activity. All right, to try to come up with ideas for how we can make that happen. I'm going to skip the activity part and show you sort of the results. Okay, so my group did that. We all came up with ideas for reducing the risk factors and increasing the protective factors, like how many people would experience those things. And then we talked about it, and then we chose the best ones. And the best ones are our solution ideas. Okay, so here we go. 2, lower the amount of students with poor refusal skills. Okay, we are going to mandate that in wellness classes throughout the district or throughout the state, that students have to learn and practice refusal skills. All right, you actually have done these things. You have learned and practiced refusal skills in Wellness 1 and Wellness 2 as it's related to healthy and unhealthy relationships and your sexual health. All right, so not every district requires that. Not every district does that, or every school does that. So that is our solution idea, is that we would mandate that students would learn and practice refusal skills in their wellness classes. All right, next one, to lower the amount of students experiencing academic failure, we would start a mandatory lunch tutoring program. This would be free. Any student that is getting lower than a C in a class would automatically have to attend this tutoring program. All right, so they would grab their lunch and go to a specified area with tutors, maybe NHS students and teachers volunteering during that time, or it'd be like a duty for them, like they would supervise a study hall. Instead, they would supervise a tutoring program. Okay. Now, moving on to the protective factors, the things that we want more people to experience. The first one is people who are involved in school activities are less likely to use tobacco. So we want more people to be involved in school activities. So how do we do that? We require it for graduation. Okay, so our recommendation is that schools require 1 school activity per year. It could be a sport, it could be a fine arts activity, it could be any sort of group or club, like it could be like robotics, it could be whatever, but it has to be something that is school or Minnesota State High School League sponsored. 1 per year. It can be the same one all 4 years. It could be different ones throughout the years. But in order to graduate, students would have to participate in at least 1 school-sponsored activity. See how that we can enforce that? It is a graduation requirement. You have to do it to get your degree or your diploma. Okay, so that is very different than us just saying, hey, people should get involved in school activities. Okay, that's a suggestion, an actual solution idea saying, hey, this is our idea, but we're requiring it. We are making it a graduation requirement. And then the other one, future plans to get more people thinking about their future. We're going to mandate, again, notice that as we are mandating each student to meet with their counselor at least 1 time per year, talking about future careers, what classes they should take, the education needed to get involved in those careers, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so you'll have the counselor will have a, whether it's using Naviance or something like that, a future plan sheet to help a student organize their thoughts about the future and how to best prepare them to get to where they want to go. All right, now we realize that we might have to hire more counselors, so this is going to cost, money and things like that, but it's one of our solution ideas. All right, because it directly affects students having to think about future plans, and hopefully through those conversations get excited about it. Okay, now the next thing, after you choose those 4 solutions in your group, you then have to discuss what's the best one. Of those 4, which one is best? Why is it the best? whose support do you need to make it successful, what obstacles could get in your way from it becoming successful. All right, and then you can't stop there, right? If you're telling somebody like, oh yeah, these are all the ways it could go wrong, and you just stop there, they're like, oh yeah, it's a stupid idea, right? So then you have to say, well, but here are the things we would do to make sure that doesn't stop us, right? Those are the workarounds, okay? Those are addressing those obstacles. Um, so our best choice or number one choice solution, if we were to only pick one of those four, would be to require a school activity each year. Okay. We chose this because through research, we learned that school activities is a protective factor in numerous risk behaviors. All right. So that not only does it help with tobacco prevention, but it helps with alcohol prevention and drug prevention. Whose support would we need? Well, we would probably need the school board, superintendent, the individual schools themselves, and the communities. We need the parents and students to be on board as well. What obstacles can get in the way? Schools are going to have to come up with more money to pay more coaches and supervisors because there are going to be more students involved. All right. And there's also another obstacle that maybe you think about most clubs and school activities typically meet after school. Not every student is available after school, so we would have to work around that. We'd have to figure that out, all right? Because you can't require something but then have it be in a situation where it's just unattainable, all right? So the way that we would work around that is that we would, number one, we would change our school day so that there was a 20 to 30-minute break during the morning. And during this time, it can be like just downtime, but also clubs and organizations and teams can meet during that time as well if their student is not being required to attend some sort of academic tutoring or help session or something like that. All right, so that would change. That would make it available for those students who aren't available after school. All right, and then also we would look to get grants for the first 5 years to hire more supervisors and coaches. And then we would look to see, did it make a difference? Were people choosing to be sort of healthier choices? Did tobacco use go down in those 5 years times? And if so, then we would ask the district or the state for money to actually support this idea, to continue it, to maintain it, and for it to become sort of a mainstay. All right, so that is how you pick your solutions. Okay, you guys, here's the deal. Most of you have probably heard of the DARE program. What you maybe didn't know was that the DARE program, maybe 7 to 10 years ago, they did a study to see how effective it was, and 0% effectiveness or impact. Okay, so what that meant is they looked at students who didn't go through the DARE program and compared that to students who did go through the DARE program and who had a higher likelihood of actually using drugs, alcohol, tobacco, which was the purpose of the DARE program, was to keep students, was to prevent students from using alcohol, tobacco, and drugs. Guess what? Same likelihood. So the conclusion to that study is that it did not achieve its purpose. Okay, it's why it's not really around anymore. The problem, the reason why it wasn't successful is because no one bothered to look at determinants, look at risk and protective factors for alcohol, tobacco, and drug use. They were just had a ton of good intentions and going into classrooms with some sort of curriculum or just telling stories, but none of that was based on determinants. Okay, so your solutions automatically, if you base them on determinants, which you better do for a good grade, will be more successful than the DARE program. All right, when you are coming up with an idea and we have these things, these are facts, these determinants are proven facts, that we know that it makes behavior either more or less likely to happen, that has got to be the foundation of your solution idea. All right, so again, real quick recap. Find your 4 determinants that are tough to impact, but you think are important for people to know. Like, oh, that's interesting, or oh yeah, I should know that. That would be good to know. It might change the decision that I make knowing that information. Like, for example, if I was thinking of drinking alcohol and I learned that if I have a parent who struggles with alcoholism, that it makes me 10 times more likely to become dependent. And if I didn't know that, I might just drink. If I knew that, I might make a very different decision. I may choose never to drink because it's so much more likely that I will end up dependent on it. All right, so 4 determinants that tough to impact but important and interesting to know. 4 determinants that you actually feel like you can come up with an idea